Well, hey, welcome to the Tribalizer podcast. I'm your host, William Walker, and today we have my good friend, Brandon Isabel, here to join the show. Brandon has over 14 years serving in the ministry as a pastor, developing leaders, managing people, and fostering a team-first culture. And in 2023, Brandon transitioned from the pastoral role into a corporate role and into the corporate world, stepping into a position as executive director of recruitment and client development and relationships at Bailey Harris Construction. There he focuses on hiring top talent, business development, and really strengthening the relationships with those really key premier clients that they have. Despite his professional life being so busy, and I know he's a very busy man because I've known him for a long time, he also has an amazing family, a wife of 21 years, Amy, and two daughters, Livy and Elliot. Welcome to the show, Brandon.
It's great to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
Man, it's my pleasure. I got to be honest. Like, I've interviewed a lot of people. At least I think I have, not compared to others. But this is the one I've been the most nervous about.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. But it's you have played a big role in my journey as a leader and as a man. When you were my pastor. But also outside of that, beyond that, now as our friendship has developed over the last couple of years, but you've always challenged me. I mean, I think back to conversations we had when I was serving in some roles at the church, and you were the pastor there, and you pushed me, and I was like, I just didn't. It really made me uncomfortable. But I'm very grateful and appreciative, and so I'm super pumped that you're here today. Super excited that we're going to get to tell your story and some lessons learned, and hopefully that the men who listen to this will just be able to pull some nuggets out and have some transformation and realize that they have what it takes to be trailblazers just like you have been for so many years.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you for that. It's and I can echo, you can't tell how many times you're just a sentence or two of encouragement, lifted me on a Sunday or any random day that you probably never knew how much it meant. So the feeling is mutual, my friend.
Well, thanks, brother. Well, thanks, man. Well, the premise of this podcast, we were talking about this a minute ago, is just really the name of it's called Trailblazers, and Trailblazer is defined as someone who creates a path through the wilderness for others to follow. And I believe as leaders, as men, that we have a role to play to do that in the world. And I always like to preface this, the world doesn't always have to be the whole world, but we have a sphere that we're given influence over, and that world is where we're called to be trailblazers in. And you have without a doubt done that. And so I wanted you here to be able to tell that story. So really, I think the best place for us to start is kind of at the beginning, kind of get to know you a little bit, like where you grew up, play sports, mom and dad, that kind of stuff. So let's start there.
Well, it's pretty simple. I grew up in Birmingham, born and raised. I have a younger brother. We're a year apart, and just have wonderful parents. Raised me and my brother to love the Lord, love each other, love them. We just had a great family life. Played sports my whole life: football, basketball, baseball. Wish I would have played golf when I was younger, but that came later in life. But I played them all, and then through high school, and was very fortunate enough to be able to play collegiate athletics and finish my career at UAB, where I met my beautiful wife in a history class at UAB. Played baseball there, and just had some really cool opportunities to play post graduation, and met some wonderful people. But was always very involved in church. I always had this sincere love for church, for the local church, for attending church, for being a part, for going. Never was a burden really for me. Grew up in a small church of 25 people. I think 20 of them were, relatives. And so, but it was always just a sweet time. Played an instrument. We were very involved. My dad played the piano. My mom sang. I played the drums. My brother played the guitar. Like, we were the worship team for years. And And so it's always been something that Sunday was not about us. And did I don't have a pastoral pedigree. None of my family members are per se pastors, but church was just always something that we attended and served, but we never thought ministry was, a part of our story. And went to college and met Amy, went to graduate school, wanted to be a coach. I was on this path to be a college coach in some way. And when we got married, we found a Church of the Highlands in Birmingham at Mountain Brook High School that we loved, and just went all in. First time I ever saw pastors, leaders that didn't preach, that were small group pastors and youth pastors and student. It was just really cool, and led a small group, and just you started finding this fulfillment in helping men, helping people, and caring for people. Like I would find myself coaching and teaching, and thinking about helping another couple, helping another person, pastoring them, empathizing with them. And God just was just stirring the whole time, through relationships and friendships. Just, man, there may be a new chapter in your life outside of coaching and teaching. And it was, we got involved about that time. Church of the Highlands, Auburn was starting up. The pastor there was a dear friend, called me out of the blue one day. You ever thought about ministry? It was a pretty obvious no, I have not, in terms of what he was referencing. But we couldn't shake it, man. And we decided, let's just leave our jobs. Let's move to Auburn, and let's just see what God does. I'll never forget, Sean told me, Sean Clark is his name. He said, I can't offer you a job, but I can offer you a friendship. And we were crazy enough to take him up on that offer and moved with no job. Amy got a job and kept us going, and she's amazing anyway, but that just shows her heart to serve the local church. We just found out we're pregnant with our first daughter, Olivia. So here we are.
Getting ready to say you just found out you're pregnant again.
No.
It's like, wait a minute, you got a third one, and we just announced it on the podcast.
Brother, that's a whole nother podcast. Right. Anyway, so yeah, it was just a crazy thread of events that took place where we were just stepping out in faith. We were unified, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on, but we were just very unified in what this season was going to look like. We're going to be together, and we're just going to serve the church however we could. And God was just going to provide. And she got a great job, and she's like, you just go all in. Don't worry about it. I was like, I'll get a part-time job. I'll do whatever. She's like, no, let's just give everything we have to the local church. So we packed up U-Haul and moved to Auburn and served, and just God just opened up doors to, if you would have told me I would be a campus pastor after we moved, I would have said you're crazy. But because we never set out for that, we just wanted to serve the church, and God just opened it up and gave me something I really wasn't prepared for. I didn't deserve, but it was a great season of serving here in Auburn. So that's kind of how it all played out. That's us.
It's just a testament to open hand, willing. He makes a way, like 100%.
You're right. That's exactly right.
I mean, I'm living that out right now. I mean, I literally 3 months ago quit my job at the university. Everybody's like, huh?
Sure.
Yeah. Don't have a client list that pays the bills yet. Right. True. But just prayed. And like you said, we'll talk when we get to that alignment. I mean, there was
huge.
There was a year of praying with my wife going, hey, we have to be aligned that this is the right decision. And I was not going to I wasn't even prepared to make that decision until she said, yes, we're good.
Yep. You're exactly right.
So, but that's cool. So I just want to make sure we kind of brushed over real quick. So you coached and taught, right?
Yep,
is that what you're doing in high school?
6
college?
years. I did in high school. And obviously when you're in that world, you kind of work your way up, and I had met some great, still to this day, great friendships coaching high school football and baseball, and was really excited about that being our story. But obviously, as we all know, God has a different story for many of us, and ours was that included. So that was the pursuit out of college.
Did you ever notice that there was a connection between your time as a coach and when did you notice that there was a connection between your time as a coach and the things you learned coaching
Mm-hmm.
and then going, now I'm a campus pastor?
Well, that's a great question, and I think it
Sorry, I know
no,
it's off script, man,
no,
but
it's
I'm just
great.
like,
I'm prepared, but no, it's. I think about it all the time. I think the reality is the message of being a part of something that's bigger than you, growing, um, using your giftings and maximizing the gifts that God gave you, um, perseverance and resiliency, all the things that we go through, whether it's in sports or in life, a lot of it translates and it transfers into our spiritual life. Now, it could be unhealthy because we can make it about our pursuit of Him more than
mm-hmm,
His pursuit of us. And
yeah,
we got to remember God loved us first.
mm-hmm,
And that's a huge part of my story growing up. I loved church, but I had a great relationship with my church, and it wasn't about my relationship with Jesus. A lot of my story in terms of my faith journey was about my love for Him,
mm-hmm,
not His love for me. And that's what fuels my love for Him. And not that anything was wrong or anybody got it wrong. It was just the world I was raised in. It was this pursuit of Him. And before that starts, that's great, but it's got to be motivated by His love for us and His love for me, His love for you. And so, yes, a lot of it does translate
mm-hmm,
because you're helping people um, see and recognize their significance, how God created them, their gifts, their purpose, helping them connect to God's love for them, and
yeah.
hopefully they can see it in a way that can change their life. And you can be a small part of that story.
So, I mean, I can't brush over this because you opened this one up, but you talked about, or you shared a second ago that you was like, hey, early on I grew up in the church. We went to church every Sunday. We were very active in the church. We did
Mm-hmm.
these things, but it was all about me, and less about really kind of building that relationship with Him
Yeah.
and letting Him pursue me. Talk to me about that. Like, when did you start realizing that the way you were pursuing Him was not necessarily fulfilling and filling you
Yeah.
up the way He wants to fill us up as a perfect
Mm-hmm.
Father does?
For sure, that it would be when I met Amy
Yeah.
in college. Um, it was when I just saw this genuine, just this sincere love for Jesus there was this innocence about her, but
Mm-hmm.
also it was not about performance or anything. It was not about her church attendance. It was not about whether or not she was a member here or there, whether she missed or not.
Mm-hmm.
There was this relationship, this authentic relationship with Jesus that I was just drawn to, her walk with Him, and I
Mm-hmm.
learned from her. I tell people she led me to Christ, really,
Mm,
in terms of that relationship
that's
too,
awesome.
because I saw it with my own eyes. And one of the things I think drew me to her was she had someone in her life that she loved and needed more than me,
Mm-hmm.
and it drew me not only closer to her but closer to that person, which is Jesus.
Yeah, man, that's cool. That's
Mm-hmm,
awesome.
mm-hmm.
It's so true, man. I mean, it's funny. I've shared here lately. It's all through my journals over the last month and a half. Is this desire to be desperate,
Yeah,
and I wrote it down and I prayed it the other day. I got scared when I wrote it down. I was like,
yeah,
I just want to be desperate for you next year.
yeah, yeah,
And I wrote it down. Like I said, I wrote it down. I was like, okay, what did I just write down? What did I really just ask God to
yes.
do in my life?
Mm-hmm.
But I want that. And it's so cool that you got to see that in your future wife at the time. I mean, at the time, it was just someone you were dating,
Yeah,
and just the impact that had on your life, and then just the trajectory,
yeah,
knowing, hey, I got a perfect plan.
yeah. And she's always had that. It's just so cool how God puts you together with your spouse, just because her love for she served the church, she served Sunday school since she was young, and
Mm-hmm.
her mom was like a loved Sunday school teacher, um, and so it's just to see that genuine love for Jesus. It challenged me. It
Mm-hmm.
really did, and it challenged me to not um, not just pursue her, but pursue the Lord.
What was that like for you? What was that journey like for you? Kind of learning how to pursue. What were some of the things, the struggles, challenges, I guess you saw in that process?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's natural for us to want to see results or
Mm-hmm.
see fruit of it, but it's the whole point of faith is um, you may not see it, but you trust that it's about a relationship. And I mentioned this. One of my favorite quotes is, "Religion says I messed up. My dad's going to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
But relationship says I messed up. I need to call my dad."
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes, period, just
Mm-hmm.
because it summarizes the the impact that our relationship with the Lord has, and
Mm-hmm.
it's knowing Him, growing in Him, talking to Him, listening. Hello,
Mm-hmm.
listening to Him, reading about Him. Just the journey became about a person,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when things started to shift for me. Was it wasn't about a church or an attendance or a denomination.
Mm-hmm.
It was about a person.
That's good. I have a series of questions I ask most mornings during my quiet time. And one of the questions is, hey, Jesus, what do you think of me as a man?
It's
And
great.
I ask guys this with, whether in my small group or whether it's a coaching client that I have. And I'm like, how do you think God's going to answer that?
Mm-hmm.
And I always get this, well, hey, you need to work on this. And I'm like, hold on. I said, you're a dad, right? And they're like, well, yeah. I said, what would you tell your son? Oh, he's awesome. I'm proud of you. You can crush the
It's
world. Like
great.
you have every, and I'm like, how much more perfect is your heavenly Father?
It's great. Yeah.
So why is he going to tell you you need to work on this?
Yes.
And so for me, when I started going through, and that's just I have like 6 questions I ask, and they're clear. Hey, Jesus, this, um, and it has evolved my relationship with him to
Mm-hmm.
literally that space of I'm pursuing a person.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I talk with him like he's sitting
Yes.
in that chair over there.
That's right.
And look, and I am not saying like I sometimes I hate saying it because I feel like guys are like, man, it'll never be that way. I'm like, bro, it took years to get to where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Like years. And there's still so much more that I want.
Yeah.
So I encourage you, listen, just start, you know?
Absolutely.
And if you do that, it gets better.
And if you have children, your kids are are directly impacted by the version of Jesus that you see, that you serve, that you portray in your home.
Mm-hmm.
And they, yes, they have a responsibility to grow and have their own personal relationship, but it really begins how they see you and him
Mm-hmm.
interact and talk and how you portray him as well. And so you're exactly right. It has to become about a person.
Yeah. No, well, you said it first. So, I mean, I got to give you that 100%
Mm-hmm.
because I love that. It has to be about a person. I'm going to remember that and write that down
Mm-hmm.
and use that one.
Definitely helped me.
Huh?
It's definitely helped me.
Yeah. No, without a doubt. So here you are. You moved to Auburn. You were coaching, living the dream.
Yeah,
Right. This is like, hey, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
absolutely.
Family's good. Wife's good. Job's great. You're doing something that's having an impact and obviously an influence on young people's lives. Um, and then you get this call. Hey, I can't offer you a job,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd really love you to come down here to Auburn. You decide that, hey, we're gonna pick up, head south and come to Auburn.
Yep.
And so what was next? I mean, you got here,
We
started.
got here and just served as if we just took ownership of it, and we were very fortunate to have just great friends and great relationships that really mentored us and guided us. I mean, we were 29, 30 years old, 28, 29 years old, so it was really, we didn't know what we didn't know. We were just
Mm-hmm.
figuring it out, and part of that, we look back and there was so much innocence there. It was very it was a lot of fun, and just to be on this new exciting journey together. um, and we just served, and an opportunity presented itself to kind of be an associate, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
at the campus and serve. And then it wasn't too long after that where Sean was like, "Hey, I think God's calling us to Birmingham. We think there's a good chance that you may be considered for the campus pastor role. What do you think? And I'm like, immediately you begin to disqualify yourself, but we all know how that goes when we try to do that. But it was interesting. Like I went home and I was telling Amy about it, and after she got over the shock of what, they can't leave us. Sean and Rhiannon, you're our lifeline. It was like she kind of paused. She was like, "No, you're ready. Like you're the guy." Before there was any interview, before there was any conversation, she spoke. She goes, "It's all over. You're the guy." And so she had a lot to do with just the confidence it took to be able to just recognize, what, maybe God has gifted us as a family to lead for a season. And so we stepped into it. It was presented. We were just blown away. Could not believe we got this opportunity, and still looking back, still can't believe it. But God's so faithful, and so we just served our whole heart with all our heart. Didn't know what we were doing half the time, but looking back at everything that happened, it was obvious that God was just all through it, and He's going to get the credit, no matter what. But it was a sweet, sweet season for sure.
So this was in 2009.
2009.
Church of the Highlands launched the campus in Auburn.
It
was like the second campus, wasn't it?
07. Yep. They launched in 2007.
And then
we
2009.
moved down around January, February. Started coming down in January of 2009.
Okay.
And ended up moving in May.
Okay. And then you said how many months later after that started?
Oh man, it was
had Sean go, "Hey, I think you're going to be
probably around a year, probably less than a year."
Okay.
Yeah. So it was quick.
Yeah.
It was soon enough for me to realize I'm not prepared for this. But we had just the greatest support system, and just the greatest campus. Like the people were amazing.
Yeah. And so the Auburn campus was 2009 there.
Mm-hmm.
It was still, it was 2 years along, but it was still up and growing as a campus. I know it was packed because I can remember.
Yeah, my first Sunday, I think we were 524 people. On that Sunday. Yeah.
Okay. So it was packed, but not like it was towards the end of being
services. It was amazing to see, and Sean was just the best at development. He's still pastoring today. Talk to him pretty often to this day, but he's always been just a hero, a friend, and a pastor to us and our family, and still is. So
what was that transition like, going from, hey, now I'm just serving here, kind of an associate role, hey, now we're going to give you the full responsibility of a campus and this congregation?
Very daunting, for sure. We were naive to a lot of things. We just love church. We love people. We try to just simplify it as much as we could.
Yeah.
Just serve and love people, pastor them, be there with them, and as best you can. And obviously, you have to set up boundaries and take care of your own self and your family and those type of things. But we really tried to keep it as simple as we could and just be present with people, love people, pastor people. And it was really the perfect job for us. Just being a campus pastor, pastoring the campus there in Auburn was great, because you get to be around people a whole lot. Yeah. And that's what we really love.
That was always evident when just interacting with you on Sunday. And that was really, for you and I, for a long time, that was the only interaction we had was on Sundays when I saw you there. But you were always very intentional. It's funny. Stacy always told me, she's like, Brandon will always be there for you. Like, she's like, I have no, and she didn't say that about a lot of people. She's like, if you picked up the phone and you needed him, and it was beyond just, hey, you were my campus pastor when I was at Church of the Highlands. Like, and I knew that. And so, like, it just know that was part of that impact and part of the reason you're sitting here, and part of the reason is that I'm really hopeful that our relationship continues to flourish as friends beyond what it's been in the past, you know? But anyway, I want to make sure we kind of stay on track here and stay within a timeline for you, because I can get long-winded here. But so a lot of people don't know how Church of the Highlands grew over the next 10 years. Like it went from 500 to a new building
Yep.
to a location 30 minutes away, 15 minutes away,
Yeah.
to a second location in just under 10 years,
Yes.
actually, and then another location in Columbus.
Crazy
So,
when you
right.
think about that.
And so,
That's
yeah,
so wild. It went from one campus to 4
yeah,
within 35, 40 minutes.
yeah. And so, I mean, what was that like? I mean,
It was, looking back, it was just so exciting. I mean,
mhm,
to think about what I mentioned earlier, growing up in a church where it's just wonderful family, godly men and women every Sunday, 25, 30 people, to having to set up chairs, seeing that at a local church, watching a screen,
mhm,
might I add, to set up chairs for people flooding in. Only God,
yeah,
William, that could be the case, because it was just very evident that God's hand not only was just on our church, but was present in Auburn, and we just happened to be in a place where God had decided to move in people's hearts
mhm,
and to draw them to a place where they could experience the person of Jesus in a new way. They can
yeah,
experience grace and His mercy in a way that maybe reframed their perception or the way they were raised of what it meant to have a true relationship with Jesus.
mhm,
And that season was just, when I look back on it, God could have used anyone. It
yeah,
wasn't anything I did. We just had a wonderful team who just truly loved people, loved Jesus, in a town where, man, God just decided to pour out His Spirit.
yeah.
And we had just a great season of what God was doing, not only just in Auburn but our church
Yeah.
at the time.
So I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question, or maybe not. Hopefully, a lot of the guys that listen to this are, they're business owners, entrepreneurs. They're
Yeah.
or running or working through a business. And I'm not saying a church is a business, but I do understand that there are struggles and challenges that come with growth in that type of time period. And like growth is growth, whether it's, I mean, going and working out in the garage, right?
Yeah.
To get stronger. It's not easy. Like
Yeah.
I love Arnold Schwarzenegger's quote: "Reps build strength, pain builds size."
It's a great quote.
It really is. Like I listen, you get a chance. His newest book that he wrote, I listened to it, and he actually narrates the whole book.
Right.
And it is funny because it's just him and his anecdotes as he's reading this book. But that was just one of those quotes. And so, I mean, being able to navigate that much change and growth, like what was that like? And what were some of the lessons that you learned that would be beneficial for someone here to go, man, like that's how I need to be able to navigate that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it was, you had your faith and you had a support, but I mean, there were things that you had to.
You're right. And
I'm not trying to get too far
no,
off course, but we're just
I think it's a great question, because momentum is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can sense momentum, or you know how to create momentum, you got to also plan for what to do with it.
Yeah.
And it typically, systems were a huge part of the organization, but developing leaders was always something that was at the top of my list in terms of growth, or every day. Like I was looking to just add value to somebody.
Yeah.
And give somebody something that I have that they could take and maybe add value to their life. And really, we spent so much time as a team just being very intentional in who has God given us during this time, and what can we do to add to their story and their life, and empower them, encourage them to grow in their own leadership journey. And so we really devoted a lot of time into developing leaders for the growth, and that was a huge part of, I think, of what held up all the momentum and the growth, was we had leaders to really sustain it and continue it. And I believe God will give you what you have the ability to handle and hold, and we really try to outdo ourselves with uh, raising up leaders, developing leaders, college students, young adults, grandparents. It didn't matter what season of life you were in.
Mm-hmm.
And that was always the beauty of Auburn. There was such a cool blend of multi-generations
Mm-hmm.
that serving together on a Sunday created a lot of momentum, a lot of excitement. But we spent a lot of time pouring into people, developing leaders, whether it's through small groups or intentional time.
Yeah, no, and that's good. I mean, and it is. I mean, it's key. I see that in a lot of businesses I work with, or even just, even if I'm just working with the leader of the business,
Yeah.
it's like the conversation is always, a lot of times I'm bringing it back to, what are you doing for the people that are working?
Yeah. I always ask people, tell me about your leaders.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's interesting what comes out. Tell me about your leaders and tell me about their potential.
Mm-hmm.
Are they leading right now in a place where their potential is maximized?
Mm-hmm.
Or are they just filling a gap where you don't have somebody raised up to lead? And it always kind of, goes from there. But as the wise man John Maxwell says, everything rises and falls on leadership. And
It does, man.
as simple as that is, there couldn't be anything more true.
Yeah, no, it really, really is. I mean, it's funny. It's something that I know I heard you say a million times over to me. Always look at developing, always looking at developing. And, my journey as a coach, as an executive coach or leadership coach or whatever the heck you want to call it, like started with me 10 years ago leading a small group.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
and you're right.
I don't say this as a bragging or anything like that. It just still kind of blows my mind. But there's still two guys that are leading the group very similar to that did my group 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't been in that group in a long time.
Yep.
And so it was always about, hey, for me, it was always about, hey, how do I help this person step in?
Mm-hmm.
When I look back over my career as a chef, and I think about, hey, what are the things that I enjoyed most about my job? And I love cooking. I mean, I love being in the kitchen. There's something beautiful and powerful that happens at a table. Like everybody's cares kind of go away. Their concerns and their gripes go away when we break bread and drink wine together.
Yeah.
Like, and you don't have to drink wine.
Yeah.
If you don't like drink wine, I like to drink wine every once in a
Yes.
while. But so there's something magical that happens there. But what I started realizing was the true joy that I got from the job.
Mm-hmm.
Was the young kid who came in and was like, I really want to be a chef one day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Come over here.
Yeah.
And let me walk beside, let me walk beside you on this journey. Here's a book I need you to read.
Yeah.
Right. There was a book, Letters to a Young Chef. And it's this story of this guy's apprenticeship and working through, and how every time he moved on, it was a chef that he had worked for 5 or 6 years that had finally said, hey man, like I don't have anything. It's not that I don't have anything else to teach you, but it's time for you to take a next step in your journey. And he would be like, I'm calling such and such who's got a higher level position for you, and you need to go there.
Yeah.
And so sending them out. So yeah, I mean, the whole idea of developing the people that are on your team to be the best that they can be, but then also hopefully develop the people that are on their team to continue.
Absolutely.
Because the worst thing you can have is someone who's sitting there.
I know.
That doesn't want to go anywhere.
Yeah. There's always I was always told that the church is going to look like the people God sends you, and it should look like the people there. And why not develop them, and why not give them opportunities to lead and fail and serve? And that was always fun.
Mm-hmm.
Still is.
Still is. Still doing that to this day.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever stop. But I mean, that's part of life. So here you are, you're 10 years, 2009 to 2020, 2020 hit.
Mm-hmm.
All the churches closed the doors.
Yeah.
What was that?
Man, we got real creative during that season. I was just telling Amy a couple nights ago, can you believe this February, we 5 years since that happened? And man, that was a whirlwind. It seems like it was just yesterday, but we really, just got strategic, creative as a team, just in general as a church, and just try to do the best we could. Pastor Miles Fidel, who's our pastor now, has been that for about 2 years. We've been friends for 8-9 years, and he opened up his studio over at the church, and they kind of built this makeshift studio to record things for videos and sermons and
Oh,
takes.
wow.
And he
I had no idea.
come on over here and use it. And we would spend time over there shooting videos and doing things for however we could. And just an interesting season, but I think we did the best we could. And looking back, we got through it.
I know for a lot of us, that a lot of people impacted differently. How did that impact you and your family? And was that a difficult time navigating through that? Was there a lot of great things? I mean, I've heard stories on both sides. Like some families like, man, I got all this time with my kids.
Yeah.
And then other sides of like, I got 10 times busier than I'd ever been in my life. And
I think there was just a heightened need in general. I think it exposed a lot about ourselves, exposed a lot about a lot of things. The church, I don't know if there's a better time for the church, because the message that we want people to know about, people were kind of desperate during that time for it. There was so much uncertainty. We just weren't sure and what was going on, but we had the message of hope that I think the world was longing for, that maybe for a short time their heart was open to receiving it, and we were part of that story along with churches all over the world. They got to share that, and it was hard. It was for us just because part of Sundays and part of the local church is being close together and singing and praying and being with your brothers and sisters in Christ. I mean, that's what it is, and that was withheld from us for a time. So that was difficult. The family stuff, I mean, it was fine. But I think for the most part, it was a time where you could see the world calling out for the need that has been in their hearts since they were born. And it's that space that's for Jesus. And I'm sure there's a lot of stories of people who their life has been changed.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think all of our lives have changed. It's just some have been good, some have been bad, some have been kind of indifferent. I mean, we've all changed because of it. I mean, it was 2020 was the trajectory changing year. I mean, it was when God like literally goes, okay, we're going to go this way. I can remember I was sitting in that chair at our old house in Grove Hill. And I got up one morning, and I kind of have a weird habit with my quiet time. I mean, I'll read more than just one scripture or one verse a day. Usually it's one verse. And I'm just like, this is my verse for today. Like, you're going to give me what I need. I'm going to be able to share it. I'm going to use it. I'm going to carry it through my day. Like, it's just going to be on my head all day long. And it's not that I'm against reading chapters and lots. Sometimes I have to read more. But most days it's just one verse. And I got up that morning, and it was 2 Timothy 3:17. And for whatever reason, it wasn't in my normal NIV. It was in a different version when I pulled it up. And it says, so that the men of God will be fully equipped and complete to do his work. And as soon as I read that, I wrote it down in my journal, and I heard, so what is a fully equipped, complete man of God? And I was just like, bro, you're supposed to give me that answer. Like, I'm asking you that. And he just went quiet.
Yeah.
And I pondered that for 6 months, trying to understand and unpack what that was supposed to be. And I knew it was going to be the foundational verse for my business and for where I was going as a man and as a leader. So yeah, I mean, 2020 changed my life.
Yeah, man.
In such a cool way. Now, 6 months later, he gave me, I read 16. I swear to God, I never, 6 months, I didn't read verse 16. And verse 16,
Finally.
verse
I've been
16
telling
says,
you the whole time, just look
here. Like I just did. I would just be like,
it's right in front of you.
Digging through the Bible. But it's, in 16 it says, the Bible is good for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training. And, in my coaching, I have a process that I use called the trail markers. And it's all about creating a path that we follow.
Yeah.
And when I saw verse 16, that path is in the Bible. Like, he's going to teach you how to live and lead. He's going to rebuke you. So in other words, when you get off the path, he's going to be like, hey, bro, get back on the path. then he's going to correct you. So he's going to get you back onto it, and then he's going to train you how to stay on it. And life is that cycle. Every single day
Very
is
true.
that cycle. And so it's kind of the two foundational verses that have changed
Love
my
it.
life and the trajectory in 2020. So 2020 hits, 21 comes back. We're all going back to church. You know,
Not everybody came back to church.
Not everybody came back to church. A lot of people came back to
It's
church.
tough.
There was a lot of people that came back
yeah.
to church. But I mean, this is on the backside of this. You've already, by 2020, you've launched 4 other campuses, because you went to Opelika and you started the church there. And I mean, I can actually remember being in a small group with Kevin that met with Brian Keeter and a couple other guys
Legends.
at
Great men.
at Price's Barbecue House.
Yeah.
We used to get
Just
breakfast there. Like, he wasn't even a pastor. Like, it was just a small group he was in.
Kevin is a special friend, still is. Just
Awesome
one
guy.
of the best pastors I've ever met in my life. Just a great leader and just a dear, dear friend. And God's just continuing to use him and his family. And it was a part of Opelika. And then, you have another Columbus campus right down the street where people were driving in across the state line to come to Opelika and Auburn, and Columbus was ready. And then you have another place in Auburn, a space just to kind of grow another campus. And so, it's a miracle. Like, it really was. Like, there was nothing special about me or us or anything. It was just, we just happened to be blessed to be in the right place and to be able to lead in a city that we love. With friends we love, and just watch God do what he does.
Well, I mean, it's a testament to who you are as a leader. I mean, almost every one of these guys that went out and either is now the campus pastor or someone on their team was someone that was, served under you and had been part of that process.
It's crazy to think about that, really, because
I mean, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. When you think about some of the people that their stories just align with ours in Auburn, and that God's hand was on their life. He equipped them to be a leader, and I just happened to be able to play a small role in it. It's really cool to be able to celebrate them and just encourage them to really just step out. You have leadership on your life, and I'll help you any way I can.
Yeah.
And it was cool to just have that voice in their life and see them today still living for the Lord and serving their families and just making the name of Jesus known. It's pretty cool.
Well, it's just, I mean, it's a testament to who you are as a man and as a leader and as a friend to them.
Very blessed.
Now, obviously, that was a lot. I mean, that's thousands of people going to church, coming on Sundays, lots going on. 2 little girls that are growing up. One, I can't believe how big. I mean, when I saw her at the game not that long ago, or at the tailgate, I was just like, I remember when she was like that big.
Yes, well, she's 14, and I have a 10-year-old. Please pray for me, Lord. They're great. They're fun, and it's parenting is a whole other podcast, I'm sure. But it's
can't say it gets easier, man. And I really think that it gets harder when they reach that adult age, because now you're still parent up till that point, and now it's like you move to this weird friend colleague kind of level that's just weird.
I've heard this because I have 2 girls that somebody told me one time that has a son and a daughter. They said from birth to 13, girls are easy, and at 13 it's like switches. Whereas sons from birth to 13 is really hard, but after that it gets a little easier. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard that it's something about how one's easier from 0 to 13 and one's not. So we'll see. But right now all I have is to go by are 2 awesome girls who I've been able to baptize and share Jesus with, and they're awesome. Cool. Amy's the best mom too. She's taught me how to be a girl dad.
You definitely got lucky, man.
I did. She like, I remember when we were younger, when the girls were younger, and they would put on makeup and a dress and want to show me something. I may not recognize their eyelashes, and she would be like, eyelashes, like, And,
You know,
and I would, your eyelashes are beautiful, and they would just blush, and I'd give her the wink, like, thanks for, thanks for that dad win.
I can remember. I actually can remember. God, I can't say it would have been a post on social media, but I remember you saying something about that one time, and just and it was just in this.
Mm-hmm.
It was about, hey guys, remember, just we have to slow down, we have to stop, we have to kind of, because
Mm.
look, man, I'm the first one to. I am very well known by my friends as being someone who kicks the door and he was, hey, I'm here, let's go.
Yeah.
And then ask questions. Should I have
Yeah.
kicked the door in? Should we knock? Should I ring the
Yeah.
doorbell?
Yeah.
And so you miss things.
Yes.
So I remember you saying that.
Yeah. I've got a really good friend who I love dearly, and his name's Todd Thompson. They've moved, and he and his wife Lee, they live out in Georgia, and I've always just watched him for some reason. God just put him in my life as a friend and mentor, as just his disposition and countenance as a dad. He was just always slow to respond, quick to listen. He was very approachable, and I remember that seeing that years ago with his kids, thinking that's what I want to live my life to, where my kids just can approach me, and there's no fear there, and there's a relationship there. And God's been really gracious to put people in my life to kind of model what that looks like. And Todd was one of them, and that just showed me what it looked like to be that kind of dad.
What is that like for you on a day-to-day basis? Like, I mean, are there things that you do to kind of go, hey, remember, sticky note, or?
Oh, absolutely. I still do notes in the lunchbox. I date my daughters. I take them on dates a lot. Luckily, they love Starbucks, and which I do too. So
That's good.
We spend time. I ask them questions, and just I try to have a meaningful moment with the Lord, a meaningful moment with Amy, and a meaningful moment with my kids every single day. That is a life goal. Just a moment where the world just kind of stops and slows down for a moment, to where they see my eyeballs, like I'm engaged, and they know it. Whether it's me returning a question, tell me what you meant by that, how that make you feel. Just for them to receive that affirmation from their dad, that only a dad can give, that father's affirmation.
But I'm sure someone's thinking, man, how do I do that?
How
do you, I guess, even remind yourself to do? I mean, obviously now it's probably more habit than it was when it first started. But when it first started, what were the things that you had to do to kind of maybe, hey, turn this thing in from an idea into, it's just no different than getting up and breathing every day now?
Yeah, I could be in good company by saying this. I may be the only one, but I'm pretty selfish when it comes to time, what I need, want, and it's like my goal is to be the chief servant of my home, and model that, love their mom, serve their mom, and then just have an idea of the relationship that I want with them. Okay, that's great, but are you willing to do what it takes to have that? Is that just an idea, or is that something you really want to work to get to? And if that's the case, then you're going to have to lay some stuff down, sacrifice some wants, and be okay with inconvenience. We're in a season now where they're at a friend's house and it's cold, and it's late at night, and I have to go pick them up at 9:35, 9:45. And
that's real right there.
But at the same time, I'm like, I get 20 minutes in the car, uninterrupted.
Good point.
With my kid, versus the inconvenience of, I gotta go. It's just do I want? Am I willing to do what it takes to be the dad and have the relationship with my girls that I desire? And you just have to, more of you, God, less of me. And it's hard, very, very hard, because I'm selfish.
Yeah, no, literally, I was driving out of the neighborhood the other day. I was going somewhere early, and so the kids were still getting picked up by the school buses. And I saw Dad, and I don't know who it was, so I don't need to call him, walking in front of his kid, probably 5 or 6 paces in front of him, right there with the phone.
Yeah.
And the kid just barely kind of dragging the stuff behind
Yep.
him. And I'm like,
Yep.
bro, you got 10 minutes.
Yep.
Like, that's it. Like, it's not even that long of a time.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I could think. And by no means, look, I am not saying I was good at that. Like, I look back at my life, and 10 years ago when I transitioned out of working at the Hound, it was right after I came home one night, and my wife was like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
You're home. You're a zombie.
Mm-hmm.
You're gone all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
You're never here. This isn't going to work. This is what I didn't marry you for this.
Yeah. It's a switch. When I pull in the garage, there's a threshold there, and you step into the house, and that is like the moment where it's a shift in my mindset of it's time to go serve.
Mm-hmm.
It's not time to come in and sit down with a glass of tea or coffee or water. It's time to come in and be dad and be a husband to Amy, to listen and to be all in. And I actually wrote down the other day how many Christmases we have left with the girls, how many weekends, just dwindled it down day by day, just of how short their time at home really is. And I keep it in front of me.
Like, there's a calendar behind you, and it's my life in weeks.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not saying that I'm only thinking about myself,
Yeah.
but it's a constant reminder, especially every time I blacken a dot.
That's right. Because
there's only so many I got.
Well, we're going to stand before the Lord one day, man. And that conversation out of the gate is going to be about us and Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know my son? Did he know you? Were you honest with him? Did you have a relationship? But then it's going to transition to, let's talk about
what you did,
your marriage. Let's talk about your relationship with your wife. Job next? No. We'll get there. Let's talk about being a dad.
Yeah. He doesn't care.
And
he doesn't care about what I did between 9 and 5.
Yeah.
Well, he does, but
there's a responsibility and there's a weight there. And so I don't get it right all the time. And I'm not writing a book on parenting anytime soon. The story's still being written. I got a few more years because it's hard. But it's an honor. It really is.
Well, that's cool. That's awesome. I'm glad we went on this tangent. Now you see why these podcasts go long for me. There's just so much to unpack.
Yeah.
And there's so much knowledge that you have that can be shared with people that are listening. So, we started off when I did the introduction. We talked about, hey, you were a coach. You did this for a while. 14 years in ministry. 2023. Hey, I'm stepping away from ministry.
Yeah.
What was that transition like, and what happened there? Was there?
Yeah.
Unpack what you want.
Yeah, it was great. It's a great question, and I get asked that question a lot. My personal experience, I can't speak for others, but it wasn't easy. It was very unsettling at times. A lot of uncertainty, revealed insecurities, and revealed doubt, but it also revealed other things, new friends, and a new excitement, and your support system. Mm-hmm. There's so much good that can come out of those type of unsettling and uncertain times too, because that's all I loved it. Still to this day, love it. But it was just a time where we had gotten to a place in our family where we were walking through some grief that took place in Amy's life with her mom. Mm-hmm. They kind of just all rushed back years later, just unprocessed grief. And I watched her just get stronger and stronger and stronger, and watched us get stronger and stronger. And really just the Lord just continued to just reveal himself to us in new ways. And we got to a place where we're like, there may be a new season that may look different. And we started those conversations and fasted and prayed, and we came on the other side of that feeling like, okay, change is going to happen. yes, pastor is a title. It's part of an organization. You have that. But I think it's also a mantle that God's given you. It's a heart, a shepherd's heart, if you will, that God is given you, that you have, that can be used, just anywhere. But we felt like it was time for a shift, a new rhythm. And we leaned on relationships, and God just opened up doors that we're just still looking back, scratching our heads, like, how in the world did we deserve that? And but a lot of those transitions, when you transition careers, it's not easy. And I can't speak for everybody's story, but it was important for us to start with just being grateful for where we had been. We wanted to transfer gratitude. We wanted to take gratitude with us. There's no perfect leader. There's no perfect person. There's no perfect church, business. But I think you can get to a place when you're healthy enough to reframe things, and whether they ended or started or in the middle like you wanted, let's just put that off to the side and just be so grateful for the opportunity that we had to have the greatest job on the planet, the best campus, the best people and city and team that we could possibly ask for. We didn't deserve that. We didn't do anything to deserve it. God graced us. We just were grateful. And that was a huge part of, I think, what got us through a lot of that transition was just looking back, being so thankful for the opportunity that people gave us to be there for so long. And our kids, but just overwhelmed with gratitude to serve there and be a part of there for going on 17 years, whether it's a dream team or on up to a campus pastor. And we'd always been willing to do whatever. We never asked for anything we were ever given. We were asked to do it. We always just said yes, whether it was go to Auburn, come to Opelika, do this role, move to Birmingham, stay in Auburn, whatever we'll do it. And so it was. We chose gratitude, and we landed in an amazing spot with great people, and each have different challenges. Obviously, new seasons present new challenges, but we were prepared for it.
What would you say has been some of the most difficult or challenging things that you had to navigate when walking out these changes? That's not one on there, is it?
No. Well,
that was another one.
I get asked that a lot too, because I think I could write a book on it. And
okay, man. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that just they know they're supposed to make a change, but they're so scared to step into it because of the unknown that they need to hear this. I mean,
if you're married, we said it earlier. If you're married, Amy was a huge player in this whole decision, just because of her, the harmony that we had, the unity that we had, the agreement, and we there were some things we knew. We wanted to be in Auburn. We knew that this was home for our kids, and so we leaned into the great relationships that we had and just put it before the Lord. Didn't try to press anything, but I think there's a responsibility we have in a transition to. I think you could be irresponsible with that and just go on a limb and be reckless with the authority that you have as a person to leave this place and just quote trust God for what's next. I don't know if that's necessarily right or wrong. I can't be the one to speak to an individual story, but I can speak to mine. That there were some parameters that we put on how we wanted this thing to unfold. And number one was unity. And number two was just a grace flow relationally with people. Being in Auburn was a huge part of it. But it is difficult. But I think you can do enough work to lean on relationships that you have. What are you passionate about? What do you love? And God's given you a mind. He's given you intelligence. You use that to figure out a way to make a way for your family, provide. You know, as men, we're called to protect, pursue, and provide. Those three things, that is in us. We can't change that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there may be a season where you may not work, but at the end of the day, you have this desire to provide. And so we were able to do that. And God just provided a way for us to be able to continue to stay here and still use the gifts that we have.
Yeah.
And I think you'll do that for anyone. If you're thinking about changing, have conversations with people you trust. Allow them to affirm the giftings inside of you and where those may translate into other industries, and then lean into the relationships that God's already put in your life and watch him work. It's pretty awesome to see that those people that are in your life now, they're not there by accident. And he put them there for a reason.
No, 100%. I mean, this kind of answers the question I had next, which is, how do you personally handle these moments of uncertainty and discomfort when you're going through this type of transition? And you talked about your relationships leaning on there. Obviously, we know, I know, and I think everybody here who's listening to this knows that you are a man of faith. And so leaning on God through prayer. But what are other things that you have found have been beneficial to you when it comes to, hey, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I still got to get up in the morning.
Yeah. Oh Lord, help us.
I mean, that's part of it, like, right? You know, that's real. I mean, I think Miles did when he prayed, when he said that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I can't do this. Like, I'm like, I want to pray that every day.
Yeah, and that to me, that is there. He said it a couple of weeks ago, talking about maturity, spiritual maturity, and when our dependence on Jesus grows, that's when we grow in spiritual maturity. It's not in age or Bible knowledge, or it's man, I need him more. And I got to that place where I'm like, Lord, financially, I'm not worried about anything. I really, it's the least of my. I want more than anything to have that fulfillment in my heart, knowing that I'm making a difference in someone's life, and I'm doing what you've called me to. I'm walking in obedience, and I think that could be anything. It could be different things, but that was the motivation of, I can't do this. I need you, and he opened my eyes to see things that he had done 10 years ago, 5 years ago, people that he put in my life that just came back, and we revisited some of those conversations and relationships. And he doesn't want us to be confused. God doesn't want us to be lonely or questioning him. He wants us to be confident in him. And sometimes the way to do that is that season of uncertainty. He uses that to make us more confident in his power, in his name, and what he can do in our life. And how much more he can do when we just get to the end of our rope and say, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so good. I was thinking about this the other day, and it's kind of this weird thing. I was going to talk to you about it, so this is probably the perfect chance. So, I think so often I'm going to kind of go off a little bit of a tangent, but it does fall in line with what we're talking about, the discomfort and the uncertainties. It's the feeling that you have on the backside of that. There's a joy and elation that comes from that, right?
Which is, I think, what he wants.
Exactly. So when Jesus died on the cross, and we always talk about being born again, or this, or resurrected, like I think so often we think that as in, like, hey, I'm going to be alive again. Like, I don't have to worry about death, and it's a physical death, and that's all we're thinking about. And I'm like, no. Like, I was journaling it, and I was writing it down, kind of questioning. But from this point, it's like, that's when I'm most alive, is on the backside of my pain. Is when I get out of that cold plunge outside at 50 degrees at 7:30 in the morning.
Crazy, by the way.
Every inch of your body is tingling and is alive. And like, Jesus died our sins, right? But the second side of that is the life that we're called to live and being fully alive. And so it's that, like I said, the joy and elation that comes on the backside of coming through the discomfort and uncertainty from the transition. So
Yeah, it's I think you also find out how resilient you are,
mhm,
and not that it's anything to pat yourself on the back, but it's kind of like that last rep or that last lap or that last set. It's like when
mhm,
you don't think you can do anymore, you still have something else in the tank.
yeah,
It's very similar to that, where in these journeys we all face, we're as men, we're more resilient than I think we realize
uh-huh,
in Christ. And uh, we often, I think, as men, do I have what it takes? Is that battle? Will I be accepted again because of what my title was prior to what it is now? And will people see me the same way? And all those things are irrelevant to when God says He will finish it. He will finish it. When He starts something, He will finish it. And we
yeah,
were reminded of that every good work He will finish.
hmm,
And when we play our part, which is obedience and dependence,
yeah,
and rely on the foundation of relationships that can lift us and encourage us and be there for us, that's the whole goal, is when we're hurting, to have those people that love us dearly. They're right there with you, encouraging you along the way. I could tell you story after story of when we were going through that season of pain, people in my living room, the Pates and Rob and Dana Pate and Trent and Mallory Wilson and Michael and Brooke Dilworth and just dear friends on our couch in our house, just lifting us up. Friendships,
mm,
just Gabe and Kelly Gross and Rhett and Lauren Lashley and Chad and Tanya Pruitt and just friends that encouraged us for years. Um, you can rely on those things that
hmm.
help you know that and remind you when God says that every good work, He will finish it.
That's so true. He will, man. Um, wow.
We didn't touch on this a lot too, but the emotional health
Yeah,
was a huge part of getting through, going from wholeness or brokenness to wholeness, from fearful to courageous. It was a powerful season, I think, during that whole
yeah,
transition, just to get back to a place when you're going through grief. It's I've never seen anything like that, so I had to learn a lot,
yeah,
and it exposed a lot in me too, just to grow through. But the emotional side
yeah. We didn't get into a lot of
learning
what it
the
was that y'all were walking through.
well,
Like you said that your
just
wife was.
reality is just um, we had a great marriage, have a great marriage, and anytime you're in a small town, you can only imagine, the when something like that happens, a pastor is there one Sunday and he's not. What's wrong? It was nothing crazy that happened other than we didn't know how to handle deep grief,
Yeah,
and we just needed some help, and we got some great help, and it exposed us a lot of things that we were able to heal from and learn from and grow
hmm,
from. That's been remarkable. And it, but growing emotionally was a huge part of that story and that
hmm,
transition, just getting to a place of going from brokenness to wholeness and fearful to courageous and learning what it means to process and name your emotions and feel them so
yeah,
you could be your true authentic self and how God speaks to us through our emotions.
yeah,
And we always think, man, the word, conversations, friendships, prayer, all those things are great ways and avenues for God to communicate. But He also communicates to us through sadness and through grief and through pain, through this disappointment,
hmm,
and all those emotions that we may feel that we sometimes as men brush underneath the
yeah,
rug and never visit. God's saying, hey, if you'll just acknowledge that's what it is, and if you will sit in that for a moment and
hmm,
just say, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling rejected today, just acknowledge it. Hey, I'll speak to you through that. That way you can become more your authentic self and
yeah,
genuine self, and you'll hear me more, and you'll see, and I can use that to get you to a place where not only your emotional health is better, but your emotional vocabulary is broader,
yeah,
and you can begin to identify that. That was a huge part of that season too, and still is. We're still going through with our community group. Just the importance of that in your own life and marriage, and so
you shared that there was this moment in your wife's life and in your marriage where it was just like, hey, there was this struggle, this grief that was coming up from something that your wife hadn't unpacked from years ago with her mother. And then was that just the catalyst, or was there things that built up? I mean, and I asked that question because even when I left when I left the Hound and when I left the university, like there was probably a year to 2 years prior to me leaving the university that I knew that it was time for me to take my transition. And I didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
I was scared. Like I was comfortable. I was good position. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Why rock the boat? I mean, and God created us to crave and want that comfort. And that comfort comes from walking, from the beginning of time when he created the earth and Adam and Eve walked through the garden, like it was safe and comfortable and it was perfect in every way. Right. So our whole life is all about craving and getting back to that. But what we don't realize is when we really get discomfort is when we become fully alive. But that's a whole nother topic. So were there moments, or was that just like a catalyst moment, or was that just like the moment that said, hey, look, I've got to stop and take care of my family? And that made me look, it may just be, this is what I have to do that, or.
Absolutely. I mean, there came a time where, and we that was a decision. I told Amy, I looked at her in her eyes and I said, I would do whatever I have to do to make sure that we're good, we're okay. Everything else is irrelevant. And we did that together, and it just, there's a lot more that we could unpack but we were on a journey together to make sure that I grew from this whole thing. And I understood how to acknowledge someone who's hurting and someone who's in pain. You're looking back on that season, you learn a lot about loyalty. You learn a lot about friendships. I can remember sitting with Gabe Gross, who's a dear friend. I was at his house, and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, this ain't right. This is not right, but God's going to make it right."
Mm-hmm.
And it almost, when he said it's not right, it validated that what I was feeling was true, but it also gave me confidence that God was going to be, God was in control. And we had the best. We had some grief counseling, the best counselors, Ben and Becky Joyce, in Bend, Oregon. If you've never been to Bend, Oregon, go to Bend, Oregon. It's an awesome town, but they're amazing people. And just, they were a huge part of our story in terms of just the healing process and just teaching us how to walk through that together. And but we were united. We were in it together, and we learned. We went on a journey to learn and to grow together. And it wasn't easy at all. It was really hard, but I learned a lot about what to do when someone's hurting. And a lot of people left. A lot of people aren't in your life anymore, and that's okay. So you got to say something. You always remember who said something. A lot of times we don't say something because we say things like, I didn't know what to say, or I was afraid to say the wrong thing. But there's a common denominator of that, and it's me, it's you. You're thinking about you.
Yeah.
But I will never forget the people who just said, hey, I don't know what to say, but I love you, and I'm here. And that meant the world, just to say something. You always remember who showed up, who knocked on our door. And I have a friend who's in Huntsville, and his name is Jason Morgan. I got a knock on my door one night at 9:00. Open the door, it's Jason Morgan. I said, man, what are you doing here? He said, I just want to come hug your neck. Joe from Huntsville, to let you know I'm here. Sat down in my office in my house for 10 minutes. Said, well, I'm going to get back. I just love you, here for you. You'll never forget who showed up. And you won't forget who stuck around, who is still there to this day, who walked through it with you. And that's anybody's story, whether you're going through what we went through, or your own story. You remember the ones who stuck it out, who stuck with you, was there for you. But you also remember the ones who stepped in, the new friends,
Mm-hmm.
the new gifts that God gave you, stepped in your story and allowed you to start that new chapter with new friendships. And God was so gracious just to allow us to see each one of those different phases play out. And it's all Him. I mean, it's been a sweet, sweet season, and I wouldn't change it.
Yeah. So when you're going through those transitions, and I think I kind of alluded to this a little bit a few minutes ago. Like sometimes we can let ourselves get in the way of. I know I'm totally off freaking off the
You're doing
rails,
great, man.
and I want to make sure we got about
Oh, yeah.
10 minutes, and then I got to get you out of here. And maybe this will be like the last question, and I think this will be.
I doubt it.
I'm
I'm kidding. I love you.
Oh, that's okay. There will be a 2.0 coming after this. Yes, there will be. I'll let you pick the topic.
That's funny. Okay.
Like what was it? What was that voice in your head? Like what was it telling you? Hey, man, you can't do this. I mean, what was that like? And how? And
During the transition?
yeah. And then even on the other side of it, hey, I've got this new job. Because I mean, look, I know the voice says to you, hey, you can't leave this. And then on the other side, the voice goes, hey, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So how was that? How did you navigate that? And then that would be my last question, other than, hey, what do you want to make sure you finish up and people hear today as you
Mm-hmm. The question is, how did I get through the voice in your head? And I think the loudest voice was sometimes the enemy wants you to forget that you're called by God, not by man. Being a pastor is and was something that was just something I love, William, and love to be, just not regardless of a title, I just love to care, love caring for people. And you hear the enemy saying those your best days are behind you, calling him out on it. You know, that no weapon formed against me, it will prosper. Like I'm called by God. That when I was born, there was purpose in life and a calling on my life that is irrevocable, that the enemy cannot steal or take away. And it's you anchor into that. I was very fortunate, like I said, I have just great friends. I mentioned Gabe and Kelly and Rhett and Lauren and Trent Mao, Chad and Tanya Pruitt, Justin Rivers, Brandon Rolling. I could go on and on. Russell Harris was a huge part of that story. Friends that are just dear, that, man, they were so intentional about reminding me, you're my pastor, you're called. And it was almost as if they knew when the enemy's voice was amplified, they knew exactly when to remind me of the call of God on my life. And that's rare. I don't think a lot of people can have that many friends that they can lean on, that were that huge of a support system. But that's how I was able to get through it, was I had great friends, and still to this day have great friends, but they were the ones, their voices were so pivotal in getting past that. Your best days are behind you, Brandon. No, they're not. And you will do ministry again. You will, and we've been able to see that. We've been able to do that. But it just shows the importance of relationships. That there was nothing I did that, or no scripture or anything that I just reminded myself of every day that allowed me to overcome. Yes, it played a huge part, but it was the friendships that God had placed in my life that were just so timely. Their words were so encouraging to get me through some of those tough days. That's how I navigated it. And thankful, beyond thankful for. And I talked about those people that stuck with you. When you look back, when you go through something hard, you remember the people who stuck with you.
Yeah.
That's what gets you through it.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
and you were there. You encouraged me every time you would see. You would always you never backed down from an awkward moment. You went back to that relationship, and it was always, I could go hundreds and hundreds of people just were I don't know, God was just so merciful and gracious through
Mm.
that time, to get us through it. I think his greatest gift is a friend.
And so
And
now you're on the other side of that. And I'm not saying that you do hear the voice, but I know that I have heard the voices as, what are you doing? Like, you're
yeah,
not equipped to do this.
says who? Who
And
told you that?
you like,
Who
you know,
told you
but
that? Says who?
that's what the voice says
But
sometimes.
you know what
And
I
whether
say
you
to
believe
that?
it,
I say you're right. I'm not. Good job. You called me out on the facts, but I don't live just by facts. I live by faith,
yeah.
and I'm called by God, and with my dependency in Him, and that He's going to finish it. Every good work, William.
Cool.
Every good work He will finish. We can trust in that.
Thanks, man. Well, hey, I told you that would be my last question. I'm going to let you wrap it up. Any last things you want to say, you want to share? The mic is yours 100%, my friend.
I really have. I think I've said too much, honestly.
No, you have not.
To be
There's
quite honest,
hours
but
of
it's
unpacking.
it really is a. I'm proud of you, what you're doing, just to creating a platform to encourage um, leaders, men, anyone who just may be on a journey of just looking for what God has for them. My story, like many others, just goes back to a greater dependence on Jesus, great friendships, and being present, just being the chief servant of their home, and it's something that those things I just try to stay focused on, and the greatest gift I can give my kids is the love for Amy, their my wife, serving her, and being present with them, use the gifts that I have, do the best I can to add value to other people's life. And I think that's all of our story. Everyone listening to this, or who um, may be wondering what that next season of life is, I tell you what it is. It's about you pursuing the person of Jesus, surrounding yourself with friends who can see the greatness that God has placed inside of you. They can see that, they can call it out, they can recognize that, but also um, us taking opportunities to add value to someone else, whether it's the bride of Christ, a local church, or someone's life. And that's what you're doing, and you're adding value to others. Those type things God just doesn't reward. God doesn't just let slip by. He rewards those things. He honors that, and you're in good hands, my friend.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm glad you're here. Hey, guys, thank you again for turning in today. Thanks, Brandon, again for being here, man. I've always enjoyed our conversations, and now I've enjoyed even more. Hey, guys, if you like this, please make sure you follow, subscribe. We're on YouTube, on all your major podcasts. And if you're interested in learning more about what I do as a coach, I have Walker Coaching and Consulting, where we help men unpack who they are, why they're here, and then build a strategy around how to win at home and in the workplace to really kind of make that difference. Just launched a group called Trailblazer Community. It is for men. We meet once a month. It's a great place to get connected, build a community of like-minded men, and really take charge of your life. This is William, and I'm out.